I had a good cup of coffee the morning I drove out to Heron Ridge. Owen was staying at my mother's for the week, his last real stretch of summer, and I had the truck to myself in a 5-day fence contract on a horse property in Dillard County, rural Virginia, 40 minutes from anything. The survey map on the seat beside me showed a clean back pasture, a stone wall on the eastern edge, and a corporate campus just beyond the tree line. The job was straightforward: replace 2 runs of board fence, reset 4 posts, done by Friday. I pulled through the gate at 7. The farmhouse sat back from the gravel drive, weathered white clapboard, a covered porch with 2 chairs. A black sedan was parked at the side, city plates, looking like it had arrived recently, and wasn't sure about staying. I unloaded my tools without knocking. Fence work doesn't require introductions. I was 60 feet into the first run when the screen door opened. She came across the yard in a blazer and bare feet, carrying a mug, looking at her phone. She stopped when she saw me, recalibrated, the way people do when they've forgotten a contractor was coming, and lifted the mug in something between a greeting and a shrug. "The fence company sent you?" "I am the fence company," I said. She looked at the truck. "Norris Contracting," the door said, hand-lettered. 11 years old and faded to almost nothing. She nodded once and went back inside. Her name was Miriam Holt. I learned that from the voicemails she took on the porch. She never lowered her voice. Not because she was rude, but because I think she simply forgot I could hear. She was the CEO of a mid-sized engineering consultancy headquartered in Richmond, and she had been on her way back from a client site in Charlotte when a mechanical delay grounded her flight. Then a second delay grounded the next one. And somewhere in that chain of cancellations she had ended up here. The company's rural conference, the only option, with a week's worth of decisions waiting in her inbox and no good way home before Thursday. She worked hard. I'll say that. I could hear it. The calls at 7 in the morning, the calls at 9 at night, the flat, patient voice she used with people who needed managing. She was good at it. She didn't complain about being stranded. She just kept moving. The second morning she brought 2 mugs out. She set one on the fence rail without a word and walked back to the porch. Let it sit for a minute. Pride is a foolish thing in a man my age, then picked it up. It was good coffee. Better than mine. That became a thing. Not a ritual. Not anything we named. Just 2 mugs in the morning, her on the porch with her laptop, me working the fence line, and occasionally a comment floating across the yard. She asked what I was listening to on the 3rd day. I had 1 earbud in, and I told her it was a bluegrass station out of Charlottesville. She said she didn't know anyone still listened to radio. I said I didn't know anyone still wore a blazer at 7 in the morning in a field in Virginia. That got a short sound out of her. Not quite a laugh. Close. Thursday came and went. Her Thursday flight was canceled too. The fence line, when I walked the full boundary, turned out to run 40 feet longer than the survey showed. Old stone wall had shifted. True property edge was different, and I had materials on order. Neither of us said anything about it. Owen came out on Saturday. My mother dropped him at the gate at 9, and he climbed out of the car with his backpack and immediately wanted to know if there were horses. There were 2 in the north pasture. I told him he could look but not touch, and he went off at a run, and I watched him the way you watch a boy when you know how short the years are. Miriam was on the porch. She watched him too. After a while she came across the yard with her mug and stood beside me at the fence. We didn't talk for a bit. Owen was leaning on the gate post, perfectly still, willing the horses to come to him. "How old?" she said. 11. "He's patient," she said. "He gets it from his mother." I hadn't planned to say it. It was just true, and it came out before I thought about it. She didn't press. That was something I noticed about her. She knew when not to push. She asked instead what his name was, and I told her, and she said it was a good name. Then she went back inside, and I went back to work, and Owen spent 2 hours at that fence gate, and the horses came to him on their own. Eventually, the way things do when you stop reaching. The days after that were different in a way I wouldn't have known how to explain. Not warmer exactly. Warmer isn't the word. More settled. Like something had been decided that neither of us had voted on. She asked me on Monday what I had studied. I told her structural engineering, Virginia Tech, class of 1996. She looked up from the table. "You're an engineer." "Was," I said. "I like the field work better than the office work." me about 6 years to admit it. She looked at me for a moment, the way people do when they're revising something. Then she looked back at her screen and didn't say anything more. I went back to the fence. The truth was, I still kept my PE license current, still took the odd structural consultation when someone needed a second set of eyes on a load-bearing question. Bridges, old buildings, foundations that didn't look right. I didn't advertise it. It was just a thing I could do, and sometimes it was useful. On the 11th evening, she sat on the porch longer than usual after her calls were done. The light was going gold over the back pasture, the new fence boards pale against the old stone wall. I was loading the truck. She had a glass of something and she was just sitting there, looking at the field. I didn't interrupt it, but I noticed. The 12th morning the car came at 8. A different car, Richmond plates, a driver, and it meant her week of delays was over, and the world had reorganized itself to collect her. She came out with her bag and her laptop case and crossed the yard in her city's shoes, and I was working the last post. The anchor post at the property corner, the one that had to be set in concrete and left to cure. She stopped at the edge of the grass. "Fence looks good," she said. "It'll hold," I said. She looked at it for a moment, then she looked at me. "I don't usually forget people," she said. "I want you to know I won't forget this one." I didn't have anything smart to say to that. I just nodded. She got in the car, and the car went down the gravel drive. And I finished setting the post and let the concrete start to cure in the morning sun. Thought about her on the drive home. That's all I'll say about that. 3 days later, back in my shop in Dillard, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize, Richmond area code. It was a young woman, formal, saying she was calling on behalf of the facilities board of Holt Meridian Consulting. There had been an audit, she said, of the structural assessment that had been commissioned anonymously 2 years prior. An assessment that had flagged a critical load-bearing deficiency in the campus headquarters before renovation. The board had been trying to trace the engineer of record. I remembered the job. A colleague had asked me to look at a building. Old converted warehouse, Richmond, a firm he didn't name, something about a renovation proposal that didn't add up. I'd walked the building, run the numbers, written a report under my license, charged my standard rate, and moved on. I hadn't known whose building it was. That was my assessment, I told her. A pause on the line. "Mr. Norris," she said carefully. "The board would like to know if you'd be available to meet." I said I could probably manage that. She said she'd have someone reach out to confirm the time. Then there was a second pause, shorter, and she said, "I was also asked to tell you, personally, that Miss Holt sends her regards." She said you'd know what that meant. I looked out the shop window at the driveway where Owen had drawn a hopscotch grid in chalk that morning, already half faded in the sun. I thought I probably did. "Tell her the post is set," I said. "Tell her it'll hold."